Captain Jake Morrison stood in the center of the great hall. The ceiling stretched high above him, painted with stars from 1,000 different worlds. Around him sat the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy. Each one looked different. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with their own light. But they all stared at Jake with the same cold eyes. The human captain wore his best uniform. The blue fabric was clean and pressed. His metals caught the light from the crystal walls. Behind him stood Admiral Lisa Parker and Chief Diplomat Henry Cole. They had traveled for months to reach this place. Now they waited to hear words that would change everything. "Captain Morrison of Earth," said the voice that echoed through the hall. The speaker was Vextar, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms. His species ruled half the galaxy. "You stand before the Galactic Council on this day to answer for your people's crimes." Jake kept his face calm. "Honored Council, we come here to talk. Humans have always wanted peace with our neighbors." A sound like laughter came from the left side of the hall. It belonged to a creature that looked like a giant insect. "Peace? Your ships are everywhere. Your people ask too many questions. They go where they should not go." "We explore because we want to learn," Jake said. "Every world we visit, we try to help. We share our knowledge and our friendship." Vextar's 4 arms moved in a pattern that meant anger. "You call it help. We call it interference. 3 months ago, your explorers damaged the sacred meditation realm of the Korthic people, a place of worship that took 1,000 years to build." Jake's jaw tightened. He remembered that. Report. The human science team had been studying strange energy readings. They did not know it was a holy place. When they tried to take measurements, something went wrong. The dimension collapsed. No one was hurt, but the Korthic lost something precious. "That was an accident," Jake said. "We offered to help rebuild it. We wanted to make things right." "Some things cannot be fixed," said another voice. This one came from a creature made of living crystal. "Your people do not understand. They see mystery, and they must solve it. They see danger, and they must face it. This makes them dangerous." To the rest of us, Admiral Parker stepped forward. "If being curious is a crime, then yes, we are guilty. But that curiosity has saved lives. We stopped the war between the Helix colonies. We found a cure for the Red Plague. We have given more than we have taken." The council members whispered among themselves in languages that humans could not understand. Jake watched their faces, trying to read their thoughts. Some looked angry. Others seemed afraid. A few appeared sad. "The decision has been made," Vextar announced. "We have watched your people for 50 years. You grow too fast. You change too much. You make others change too. This cannot continue." Jake felt his heart sink. "What are you saying?" "We are saying that humanity is no longer welcome in civilized space. You have 1 year to remove all humans from Council territory. After that, any human ship or station found in our space will be destroyed." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. "You cannot be serious. We are citizens of the galaxy. We have rights. Rights are given by this council," Vextar said, "and we can take them away." Henry Cole spoke for the first time. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the anger underneath. "This is not justice. This is fear. You are afraid of what humans might become." "Perhaps we are," said a new voice. It came from the back of the hall, where a creature that looked almost human sat alone. Jake knew her. She was Zarentak of the Meridian Coalition. Her people had always been friends to humans. But fear makes people do terrible things. "I vote against this exile." "Your vote is noted," Vextar said. "But 11 voices say yes, and only 1 says no. The decision stands." Jake looked around this hall one more time. These beings had the power to control the fate of entire worlds. They could decide who lived and who died, who prospered and who suffered. And they had decided that humans were too dangerous to exist among them. "We will leave," Jake said finally. "But you are making a mistake. The galaxy is not a safe place. Someday you will need us." "We think not," Mexstar replied. "We have lived without humans for millions of years. We will do so again." The three humans turned and walked toward the door. Their footsteps echoed in the silent hall. Jake could feel the eyes of the council members watching them go. At the door, he stopped and looked back. "When trouble comes," he said, "remember that you chose to face it alone." The door closed behind them with a sound like thunder. On the ship flying back to Earth, Jake sat in his chair and stared at the stars. Lisa Parker sat across from him, her face dark with anger. Henry Cole paced back and forth, muttering words that Jake was glad he could not hear clearly. 32 years, Lisa said. 32 years of friendship and cooperation, and this is how they repay us. "They are afraid," Henry said. "Jake was right. They fear what we might become." Jake nodded slowly. "Then we will show them what humans can become when they are left alone. We will show them what they have lost." The ship continued its journey through the dark. Behind them, the lights of the council worlds grew smaller and smaller. Ahead lay Earth and the unknown future. Jake did not know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for certain. This was not the end of humanity's story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. And when that chapter was finished, the galaxy would never be the same again. The stars watched in silence as the human ship disappeared into the void, carrying with it the dreams and hopes of an entire species. They had been cast out, but they were not broken. They were still human. And that, perhaps, was what the council feared most of all. 32 years had passed since the day humans were thrown out of the galaxy. Dr. Rachel Kim stood in her laboratory on New Geneva, looking at numbers that would have been impossible back on Earth. The screen showed energy readings that made no sense according to old science. But humans had learned to make sense of impossible things. "Run the test again," she told her assistant, a young man named Peter Walsh. They had been working for months on something that the Galactic Council would have called dangerous. Rachel called it hope. The machine hummed to life. Space itself seemed to bend around the metal device in the center of the room. For just a moment, Rachel could see through the wall behind it. Then everything returned to normal. "It works," Peter said with excitement. "We actually made it work." Rachel smiled. When the human explorers had accidentally broken the Korthik meditation dimension, everyone said it was a disaster. But Rachel had been thinking about that accident for 30 years. If humans could break a dimension by mistake, maybe they could control dimensions on purpose. On the other side of human space, Marcus Bell wiped sweat from his face. The factory floor of Forge Prime was hot and loud. Giant machines shaped metal into forms that had never existed before. Without alien materials to buy, humans had to make everything themselves. It turned out they were very good at it. "The new hull plating is ready," his supervisor called out. "It tests stronger than anything the Vorthan Empire ever made." Marcus nodded. The Vorthan had always bragged about their strong metal. But human engineers had found ways to make metal that could bend without breaking and fix itself when damaged. Being alone had forced them to think in new ways. In the capital city of Haven, Elena Rodriguez read reports from across human space. As the head of the Human Independent Systems Alliance, she knew what was happening on every world. The news was good. Food production was up. New colonies were starting families. Trade between human worlds was stronger than ever. But the most interesting reports came from their spy networks. Humans might be banned from council space, but information still traveled. And what Elena read made her worried. The galaxy is not as peaceful as the Council claims, she told her aide, a smart woman named Carol Stone. 3 small wars in the past 5 years. Pirates everywhere. And the Council's response is always the same. Form a committee, write a report, do nothing. Carol nodded. Maybe they were better at keeping peace when they had humans to help them. Elena thought about that. Humans had always been the ones to volunteer for dangerous missions. When diplomacy failed, humans would try something crazy that somehow worked. Without humans, the Council had to rely on their old, slow ways of doing things not far from the human worlds. On a small station near the Outer Rim, Ambassador Kai Thorne of the Meridian Coalition sent a secret message. The Meridians were the only Council species who had voted against the human exile. They still believed that had been a mistake. The message was coded and sent through channels that the Council could not monitor. It reached Admiral Paul Stevens, who had once been General Stevens. He now commanded all human defense forces. The Meridians are worried, Paul told his staff in a meeting room on New Terra. Their reports say something is coming from the edge of the galaxy, something that makes their deep space sensors go crazy. His intelligence chief, a former spy named Tony Blake, pulled up a star map. Our own long-range sensors picked up the same thing. Energy patterns that do not match anything in our databases. Paul studied the map. Red dots showed where the strange signals had been detected. They formed a line along the galactic rim, moving slowly toward the center where most civilized worlds were located. How long before it reaches Council space? Paul asked. At current speed, maybe 5 years, Tony answered. But we do not know what it is, or if it will maintain that speed. Paul made a decision. Double our deep space patrols. I want to know what is coming before it gets here. Meanwhile, in the research labs of New Geneva, Dr. Rachel Kim was making discoveries that would have amazed the greatest minds of the Council. Her work with dimensional science had opened doors that no one had imagined. She could fold space, bend time, and create pockets of reality that followed different rules. The key is flexibility, she explained to a group of young scientists. The Council species all think in straight lines. They see a problem and apply the same solution they used last time. But dimensions do not work that way. You have to be ready to try something that has never been tried before. One of the students, a girl named Amy Foster, raised her hand. Dr. Kim, do you think the Council will ever ask us to come back? Rachel considered the question. I think they are too proud to ask. But pride is a luxury. If they ever face something they cannot handle with their old methods, they might remember that humans think differently. On Forge Prime, Marcus Bell was working on a new project. The latest intelligence reports suggested that whatever was coming from the galactic rim might be hostile. Human worlds needed to be ready to defend themselves. We cannot build ships the way the Council does, he told his design team. They make everything big and heavy and powerful. We have to be smarter. Our ships need to be fast and flexible and able to change their configuration in the middle of a battle. The prototype ship in the construction bay looked nothing like a traditional warship. It was smaller, with strange angles and sections that could separate and recombine. Council engineers would have said it was impossible to build. Human engineers had built it anyway. Elena Rodriguez received another report from the Meridian Coalition. This one was more urgent. The strange energy signatures were moving faster now, and they seemed to be consuming everything in their path. Entire star systems were going dark. She called an emergency meeting of the Alliance Council. Representatives from 30 human worlds gathered in the Great Hall of Haven. The galaxy is facing a threat unlike anything it has seen before, Elena told them. The Council is trying to handle it with their usual methods: committees, reports, and slow decisions. It is not working. An old colonist from the farming world of Green Valley stood up. Are you saying we should help them? After what they did to us? I am saying we should be ready, Alana replied. Because if this threat is as dangerous as it appears, it will not stop at the borders of council space. It will come for us too. The vote was close, but the Alliance agreed to begin preparations. Human worlds would share technology and resources. They would be ready for whatever was coming. In his private office, Admiral Paul Stevens looked at the latest sensor readings. The energy signatures were definitely moving faster now, and there were more of them. Whatever was coming, it was big, and it was hungry, and it was heading straight for the heart of galactic civilization. He thought about Jake Morrison, now retired, but still respected throughout human space. Jake had predicted this moment 32 years ago. He had told the Council that someday they would need humanity. That day was coming sooner than anyone had expected. Paul activated his secure communication system and began sending messages to every human world. The exile was about to end, but not in the way anyone had planned. The galaxy was in danger, and, like it or not, humans were the only ones who might be able to save it. The question was whether they would choose to help the people who had thrown them away. Paul knew the answer. Despite everything, humans would do what they always did when faced with impossible odds. They would find a way to win, and they would save everyone they could along the way, even the ones who did not deserve it. The emergency alarm echoed through the council chambers. Vexstar rushed to his seat, his forearms moving quickly as he activated his communication screen. The news was worse than anything he had imagined. The Helix system is gone, reported Commander Zeke of the Vorthan Fleet. His voice shook with fear. Not destroyed. Gone. There is nothing left. No stars, no planets, no debris. Just empty space. Around the council table, the other representatives whispered in their native languages. The crystalline hegemony delegate made sounds like breaking glass. The insect-like Thrakari clipped their mandibles in distress. No one had ever seen anything like this. How many systems have we lost? Asked Vexstar. 7 confirmed, Zek replied. And the ... things are moving toward the core worlds. Our weapons have no effect on them. Far from the council chambers, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty. His hair was gray now, but his eyes were still sharp. The human fleet had been watching the edge of the galaxy for months, and what they saw terrified even them. They call themselves the Void Devourers, reported his science officer, Lieutenant Sam Parker. She was Lisa Parker's daughter, and she had her mother's courage. Our deep space probes got close enough to scan them before being destroyed. Jake studied the data on his screen. The creatures were massive, larger than any ship ever built, but they were not machines. They seemed to be alive, feeding on matter and energy. Worse, they existed partially outside normal space, which made them almost impossible to target. What do our scientists think? Jake asked. Dr. Kim believes they come from another dimension, Sam answered. The same kind of dimension that the Korthic used for meditation. When we accidentally broke that dimension 30 years ago, we might have opened a door. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If that was true, then humanity was partially responsible for this disaster. But it also meant they might be the only ones who could stop it. On the Meridian Coalition homeworld, Ambassador Kai Thorne watched the emergency news broadcasts with growing alarm. His people were peaceful traders and scholars. They had no great fleets or powerful weapons. When the Void Devourers reached their space, they would be helpless. He made a decision that would have gotten him arrested by the Council. He activated the secret communication channel that connected him to human space. Admiral Morrison, he said when Jake's face appeared on the screen. My people are in danger. The Council's fleets cannot stop these creatures. We need your help. Jake's expression was serious. Kai, you know we want to help, but we were banned from Council space. If we send ships, the Council might attack us instead of the real enemy. The Council is desperate, Kai replied. 3 more systems vanished yesterday. The Vorthan Empire lost their second largest fleet. Even Vextar is starting to panic. In the Council chambers, panic was exactly what was happening. The great hall that had once seemed so impressive now felt like a tomb. Half the seats were empty because those species' homeworlds had been consumed by the Devourers. We need new strategies, said Zara Tak of the Meridian Coalition. She was older now, but still the voice of reason on the Council. Our traditional weapons and tactics are useless against this threat. What do you suggest? Vextar asked. His voice was desperate. I suggest we contact the humans, Zara said quietly. The remaining Council members erupted in angry voices. The crystal beings chimed like broken bells. The Vorthan representative roared insults, but Zara continued speaking. 32 years ago, we exiled humanity because we feared their unpredictable nature. We said they were too dangerous, too chaotic, too willing to try impossible things. But chaos might be exactly what we need now. Vextar's forearms trembled with rage. Never. We will not crawl back to those primitives. We are the Galactic Council. We do not need humans to save us. 3 days later, the Void Devourers reached the outer colonies of the crystalline hegemony. The crystal beings had built massive defensive stations around their worlds, powered by the energy of their home star. The Devourers consumed star, stations, and planets in less than an hour. Back in human space, Dr. Rachel Kim worked frantically in her laboratory. The data from the Meridian Coalition had given her new insights into the Devourer's nature. She thought she might have found a weakness. They exist in multiple dimensions at once, she explained to Admiral Morrison over the communication link. Our normal weapons can only hit them in our dimension. But if we could create weapons that work across dimensional barriers. Can you build such weapons? Jake asked. I think so. But I would need to test them against the real enemy. And that means getting close to the Devourers. Jake made his decision. Prepare your weapons, Doctor. We are going to help whether the Council wants us to or not. On Forge Prime, Marcus Bell received urgent orders to prepare the new human fleet for combat. The ships his teams had built were unlike anything in the galaxy. They could separate into smaller units, recombine in different configurations, and adapt their weapon systems in the middle of battle. Are we really going to fight for the people who threw us out? Asked his assistant, a young engineer named Bobby Chun. We are going to fight for the innocent people who are dying, Marcus replied. The Council made their choice 30 years ago, but the children being consumed by these monsters had nothing to do with that choice. The human fleet assembled at the edge of their territory. 50 ships that looked nothing like traditional warships. Each one carried Dr. Kim's experimental dimensional weapons and crews, trained in the chaotic tactics that only humans seem to understand. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship U's Resilience and opened a channel to all ships. Today, we cross the line that was drawn 32 years ago, he announced. We enter Council space not as invaders, but as defenders. The galaxy is in danger, and we are the only ones who might be able to stop that danger. He paused, thinking of all the years of exile and suffering his people had endured. The Council cast us out because they feared what humans might become. Today, they will learn what humans choose to become when innocent lives are at stake. The human fleet jumped hyperspace, heading for the war zone where the Void Devourers were consuming system after system. Behind them, they left the safety of their own territory. Ahead lay the unknown and the enemy that had defeated every other force sent against it, but they also carried something the Council fleets had lacked. They carried hope, ingenuity, and the stubborn human refusal to give up even when the odds were impossible. As the fleet traveled through hyperspace toward the battle, Jake Morrison thought about the conversation he had with Vextar all those years ago. The Council leader had said they could live without humans for millions of years. Soon, Vextar would learn how wrong he had been. The galaxy needed humans now, more than it had ever needed anyone. And despite everything that had happened, humans were coming to save it. The question was whether they would arrive in time, and whether their untested weapons and unconventional tactics would be enough to stop an enemy that had already proven unstoppable. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the human fleet raced toward its destiny. The Vorthan homeworld died on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Krex watched from his flagship as his people's proud capital simply vanished into nothingness. One moment it was there, a blue and green sphere with billions of lives. The next moment there was only empty space in the terrible darkness that followed the Void Devourers. "Fall back to the secondary defense line," Krex ordered, though his voice was hollow. In 3 days, the Vorthan Empire had lost 6 worlds and half their fleet. Their strongest weapons, their greatest warriors, their most advanced technology. None of it mattered against an enemy that ate reality itself. In the council chambers, chaos ruled for the first time in 1,000 years. Emergency sessions ran day and night as representatives fled from consumed worlds. The great hall that once held 12 proud species now hosted only 7. The others were either dead or missing, their homeworlds turned to void. Vextar sat in his chair, his forearms shaking. His own world was only 2 jumps away from the advancing Devourers. Soon he might join the ranks of the displaced and the desperate. "We need to consider all options," said Zarantak. Her people had lost 3 colony worlds already. Refugee ships filled with Meridian survivors crowded around every safe system, even options we once thought unacceptable. "You mean the humans?" spat Delegate Vorth of the insect-like Thurkari. "I would rather die than beg those primitives for help." "You might get your wish," Zara replied coldly, "because dying is exactly what we are all doing." Far from the council chambers, Lieutenant Sam Parker piloted her scout ship through the debris field that had once been the Helix Nebula. Her mission was dangerous. Get close enough to scan a Void Devourer and return with data for Dr. Kim's research. The creature floated in space like a living nightmare. It was massive, easily the size of a space station, with tentacles that stretched for kilometers. But the worst part was how it seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Sometimes Sam could see it clearly. Other times it appeared transparent, as if it existed somewhere else entirely. "Getting readings now," she reported to the U's resilience. "The dimensional distortion is incredible. It is like the creatures pulling pieces of other realities into our space." Behind her, the human fleet waited at the edge of scanner range. Admiral Morrison had brought 50 ships into Council space without permission. So far, no Council forces had tried to stop them. They were all too busy dying. "On the resilience, Doctor." Rachel Kim studied the incoming data with excitement and terror. "This confirms my theory," she told Morrison. "The Devourers are not from our dimension. They are using dimensional rifts to partially exist here, while staying anchored in their home reality." "Can your weapons hurt them?" Morrison asked. "I think so. But we need to get much closer. The dimensional targeting system has a limited range." Morrison nodded grimly. "Then we get closer." The first engagement began when the human fleet encountered a Void Devourer consuming a Meridian research station. 300 scientists and their families were trapped on the station, begging for rescue as the creatures slowly devoured their home. "All ships, attack pattern Chaos 7, Morrison ordered. The human fleet scattered in all directions, confusing the massive creature. Council fleets always attacked in neat formations with coordinated fire patterns. Human ships moved like a swarm of angry insects, each one following its own path, but somehow working together. Lieutenant Sam Parker led a group of smaller ships in a daring rescue mission. While the larger vessels distracted the Devourer, her team landed on the research station and began evacuating survivors. "Hurry," called Dr. Zeph K. Tarr, the station commander. "The creature is adapting to your ship movements. It learns very quickly." Sam grabbed the elderly scientist and helped him toward the escape pods. "And we better learn faster." Dr. Kim's dimensional disruptors fired for the first time in actual combat. The strange weapons seemed to tear holes in space itself. When they hit the Void Devourer, the creature screamed, a sound that existed in dimensions humans could barely perceive. For the first time since the invasion began, a Void Devourer was hurt. "It works!" Kim shouted over the communication system. "The weapons can reach it across dimensional barriers." But the victory was costly. The wounded Devourer lashed out with its tentacles, crushing 2 human ships. The U.S. Defiant exploded in a ball of flame, taking 30 brave souls with it. The creature began to retreat, pulling itself back into its home dimension. "Let it go," Morrison ordered, though every instinct told him to pursue. "We saved who we could. Now we need to report back to the Council." The emergency session that followed was unlike any in galactic history. For the first time in over 30 years, humans stood in the Council chambers. Admiral Morrison, Dr. Kim, and Ambassador Elena. Rodriguez faced the desperate survivors of galactic civilization. "You had no right to enter our space," Vextar said, but his voice lacked its old authority. "We had every right to save innocent lives," Elena replied calmly. "Just as we have every right to offer her help now." Zarantak stood up. "The humans have done what our greatest fleets could not. They hurt one of the creatures." "One creature," Vextar protested. "There are hundreds of them, and they are almost at the core worlds." Dr. Kim stepped forward. "We can stop them, but we need your help. Our weapons work, but we need more ships and more resources than humanity has alone." "You want us to trust the people we exiled?" asked Delegate Vorth. "You want to live, do you not?" Elena replied. "Because that is the choice. Work with us, or watch your civilization die." The debate that followed was fierce. Some council members still refused to admit they needed human help. Others demanded that humans take orders from council commanders. A few suggested that this was all a human trick to regain power, but as they argued, more reports came in. The crystalline hegemony capital was under attack. The Thrakari colonies were being evacuated. The Devourers were moving faster now, as if sensing that their prey was almost within reach. Finally, Zarantak called for silence. "We are not discussing politics anymore," she said. "We are discussing survival. The question is simple. Do we want to live, or do we want to die proud?" The vote was close. 7 species remained in the council, and it took 4 votes to pass any measure. 3 voted to accept human help. 3 voted to refuse it. The deciding vote belonged to Vextar. The old council leader sat in silence for a long moment. Outside the windows, evacuation ships could be seen fleeing toward the core worlds. The galaxy was dying around them, and pride was a luxury they could no longer afford. "I vote yes," he said quietly. "May the ancestors forgive me, but I vote yes." The alliance was formed within hours. Human ships would combine with the remaining council fleets. Dr. Kim's weapons would be shared with any species who could use them. Most importantly, human tactics and leadership would guide the final desperate defense of galactic civilization Dot as the combined fleet prepared for the ultimate battle. Admiral Morrison stood beside his former enemies and current allies. The irony was not lost on him. 32 years ago, these same beings had cast humanity out for being too dangerous and unpredictable. Now those dangerous and unpredictable qualities were the galaxy's only hope for survival. The final battle was coming, and for the first time since the invasion began, the defenders had a chance of winning. But it would require everything they had: human ingenuity, alien resources, and the desperate courage of beings fighting for their very existence. The Void Devourers were almost at the galactic core. Soon there would be nowhere left to run. The combined fleet gathered at the edge of the galactic core, where ancient stars burned with the light of billions of years. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the U's Resilience, watching as human ships formed up alongside vessels from 7 different alien species. It was the largest fleet ever assembled, and their only chance to save civilization. "Enemy contact," reported Lieutenant Sam Parker from her scanner station. 57 Void Devourers approaching from multiple vectors. "They are moving in a coordinated attack pattern." Morrison nodded grimly. The creatures had learned from their encounters with the fleet. They were no longer attacking randomly. They had become organized, which made them far more dangerous. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Today we fight not as humans or Vorthans or Meridians, but as defenders of life itself. Stay flexible, stay unpredictable, and remember that our greatest weapon is our ability to adapt." Beside him, Vextar stood in armor that looked strange on his four-armed frame. The former council leader had insisted on joining the battle personally. "I never thought I would take orders from a human," he said. Quietly, "You are not taking orders," Morrison replied. "You are choosing to fight alongside us. There is a difference." The battle began when the first wave of devourers emerged from dimensional rifts throughout the system. The creatures were massive, their tentacles reaching across space to grab ships and crush them. But this time, the defenders were ready. Dr. Rachel Kim's dimensional weapons fired in coordinated volleys. The strange energy beams tore through space-time itself, striking the devourers in dimensions they could not escape to. Several creatures screamed and began to retreat back toward their home reality. "Keep hitting them," Morrison ordered. "Do not let them regroup." The human ships moved in patterns that seemed chaotic, but were actually carefully planned. They separated and recombined, attacked from unexpected angles, and used tactics that no enemy could predict. The alien ships tried to follow human leads, with mixed success. Lieutenant Sam Parker commanded a mixed squadron of human and Meridian vessels. Her ships darted between the massive devourers like tiny fish around sleeping whales. When a creature tried to grab them, they would scatter in all directions, only to regroup and attack from behind. "These humans fight like madmen," complained Captain Zek of the Vorthan ship Thunderstrike. His vessel was designed for head-on combat, not the wild maneuvering that humans preferred. "Then fight like a madman, too," Sam replied over the communication. "Link, sometimes madness is the only sane response to an impossible situation." The tide of battle shifted when Dr. Kim made a terrible discovery. The devourers were not just randomly consuming matter and energy. They were draining the dimensional barriers that held reality together. If they succeeded, the entire galaxy would collapse into their home dimension. "Admiral, we have a bigger problem," Kim reported from her science station. "The creatures are targeting the galactic core neutron star. If they destabilize it, the dimensional cascade will destroy everything." Within 10,000 light years, Morrison felt his blood turn cold. "How long do we have?" "At their current rate of consumption, maybe 6 hours. 6 hours to save the galaxy." Morrison made the hardest decision of his military career. "All human ships prepare for Operation Sacrifice," he announced. "We are going to collapse a controlled dimensional rift around the core star. It will trap the devourers in a pocket universe, but any ship too close to the rift will be pulled in with them. The alien commanders protested immediately. "That is suicide," Maxstar said. "You are asking people to die." "I am asking for volunteers," Morrison replied. "No one will be ordered to join this mission." To his amazement, every human ship volunteered. More shocking still, so did half the alien vessels. Crews who had been enemies just days before now stood ready to die together. The final assault began, with the U's resilience leading a desperate charge toward the galactic core. The ship's hull was scarred from dozens of battles, and her crew was exhausted. But they flew straight toward the cluster of void devourers surrounding the ancient neutron star. Dr. Kim worked frantically to prepare the dimensional collapse device. It was based on her research into the Korvik meditation dimensions, the same research that had led to humanity's exile. Now that knowledge would either save the galaxy or destroy it. "Dimensional rift opening in 30 seconds, she announced. Around the core star, reality began to bend and twist. Space folded in on itself as Kim's device tore holes between dimensions. The void devourers, sensing the danger, tried to flee back to their home reality. But the rift was spreading faster than they could retreat. "All ships, full reverse," Morrison ordered. "Get clear of the collapse zone." Most of the fleet managed to escape the growing dimensional vortex. But the U's resilience and 6 other ships were too close to the rift. The gravitational pull of collapsing space-time caught them and began dragging them toward the pocket universe that was forming around the core star. Lieutenant Sam Parker was aboard one of the doomed ships. As her vessel was pulled toward the rift, she activated her communication system one last time. "Tell my family I died saving the galaxy," she said simply. "That seems like a good way to go." The ships vanished into the dimensional rift, taking dozens of void devourers with them. The rift collapsed with a flash of light that could be seen across half the galaxy. When it faded, the core star was still there, but it was surrounded by an empty sphere of space where the pocket universe had formed. The surviving devourers, cut off from their home dimension, withered and died within minutes. The invasion was over. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to rebuild. Memorial services were held for the brave souls who had sacrificed themselves in the final battle. Human and alien crews worked side by side to rescue survivors and restore damaged worlds. The Galactic Council was reformed with new principles. Instead of rigid hierarchy and slow decision-making, the new government emphasized flexibility and quick responses to threats. Humanity was not just invited to join. They were asked to lead the new council's defense forces. Admiral Morrison stood in the rebuilt council chambers 6 months after the battle. The hall was different now, designed to encourage discussion rather than intimidate visitors. Representatives from 8 species sat as equals, making decisions together. "The galaxy is safer now," said Zarantak, who had been elected as the new council president. "We learned that diversity of thought makes us stronger, not weaker." Vextar, now serving as Minister of Defense, nodded in agreement. "We were fools to exile humanity," he admitted. "Their unpredictability saved us all." Ambassador Elena Rodriguez took her seat as humanity's representative. She thought about the long road that had led to this moment, 32 years of exile, the pain of rejection, and the choice to help anyway when the galaxy needed them most. "The past is finished," she said. "What matters now is the future we build together." Outside the council chambers, human and alien children played together in the station's parks. They were growing up in a galaxy where cooperation was valued. Over conformity, where asking questions was encouraged rather than feared. Dr. Rachel Kim had established a new research institute where humans and aliens worked together on problems that neither could solve alone. Her dimensional science had opened new frontiers of knowledge and exploration. On Forge Prime, Marcus Bell's factories produced ships that combined human adaptability with alien engineering. The new vessels were faster, stronger, and more flexible than anything built before the war. Admiral Lorison retired to a small house on New Geneva, where he wrote his memoirs and taught young officers about the importance of moral courage. When asked about humanity's greatest victory, he always gave the same answer. Our greatest victory was not defeating the Void Devourers, he would say. It was choosing to help people who had wronged us, simply because it was the right thing to do. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Strength came not from uniformity, but from diversity. Not from rigid control, but from the freedom to think and act differently. And sometimes, the qualities that seemed most dangerous were exactly what the universe needed to survive. Humanity had been cast out for being unpredictable, chaotic, and too willing to take risks. In the end, those same qualities had saved them all. The Council had driven humanity away, but when darkness came, they had begged for their return. And humanity, being human, had answered that call.